Hello and welcome to the Briefing Room. I'm Bill Froehlich, your host from WTCM Radio News. It's our weekly roundup of some of the stories that are making headlines this week with some of the local journalists that are covering those stories. And joining me this week, to my right, we've got Vanessa Fayz from 9 and 10 News. Vanessa,
Hello.
Thanks for coming in.
Thanks for
First
having
time for
me.
you.
Yeah, first time.
Thanks for being here. And also Jeremy McBain from the Petoskey News-Review. Welcome back to you.
Hey, Bill.
Let me start with Vanessa, because as your first time here, we should just get a quick little background on you.
There you
Give
go.
me a quick history of what brought you to Traverse City and how long you've been working for 9 and 10.
Well, graduated from Central with broadcasting degree. Went to Alpena for 5 months. Had some fun there. And then moved here to 9 and 10 News and been here for about a year.
Good. And you work out of the Traverse City Bureau.
I do. It's wonderful.
Tell us what that means for you in an average day. You're kind of bouncing back between day and night shifts lately.
Yeah. Right now I'm on the in-between. So typical day is just cop shop, talk to the cops, figure out what's going on, cover all the stories. It's this area, and it's way better being in the Bureau. I love it. Yeah, I like the area. It's great.
What's remind me the coverage area too for the Bureau reporter? Grand Traverse, Leelanau?
Yeah, Benzie, Kalkaska County. Depending on what's going on, we could go all the way up to the Sioux. Usually we have a reporter that covers all of that, but it really just depends on our staffing.
Okay, and you're also doing Fox 32 too,
Yes.
Depending on the day,
Yes,
of course.
if I am on the night shift, I'm typically in Fox 32 and 10.
All right.
So yeah.
Well, good. Well, let's talk about some of those stories that we said are making headlines this week, and we'll start locally. One of the big things in Mackinac City is this discussion, Jeremy, over the idea for a new casino. The Little Traverse Bay Bands of Dow Indians wants to put in another casino not far from I-75, correct?
Correct.
So what's the latest on that? Where did that leave off at the City Council this week?
Well, basically, they went before City Council just to, I believe it was for a feasibility, to kind of hear out what the plan was a little bit, and the council just listened to them. And I don't believe that they came up with a decision yet. What was interesting about the meeting itself was that the tribe created a feasibility study for the city, but it's all secret. Nobody can see what it is but the city. So we're trying to get that.
Huh.
We want to see what the...
How's that going to fly in open government?
That's a very good question. Well, with the tribe being its own country,
Right.
basically, they don't have to abide by Open Meetings Act or Freedom of Information.
But once they submit something to the city,
Yes. Once they submit something to the city, I'll be interested to find out what exemption they would be claiming on this one.
now part of the situation there is, explain to us why they have to even go to the city in the first place. They have to get permission. This is not tribal land currently, or there's some, I'm trying to remember the background to it, there's some requirement that they get local permission before they build.
Yeah, they have to get, the local government has to give them the approval for the project to build on that land. There was I believe it's in the same place where there was a water park there originally.
Okay.
So yeah, the local government has to give them permission on it. But whenever it comes to something with tribal matters, it's kind of complicated.
It does.
And I get confused by it as well as exactly what.
So I mean, they're talking about a $26 million casino, and so we're still in the pretty early stage. I mean, we've been talking about this for a while.
Yeah.
But it doesn't seem like we're very far along in it yet.
Yeah, you're right. We're not. I mean, we've been talking about it for a while, but we haven't. But we're not very far along. Yeah, I've heard $26 million. It's one of those we'll see kind of things. I remember when they were putting in the casino in Petoskey, the new casino in Petoskey. We heard all sorts of different plans. With the casino that's there now, along with a very large hotel that would have been able to. You could at the top of it, you could have overlooked the straits, and that never happened. And I mean, I guess be patient and find out when they finally release the plan, what exactly is it, and especially if they finally release that feasibility study, either we get it through Freedom of Information, or if the tribe or the city government finally releases it, because that would be pretty telling as to what kind of impact it would have on the community, and how much money they expect to bring in.
And it seems to me if that's a selling point for the tribe, that they want to say to the city, hey, here's why this will work, why wouldn't they want everybody to know that too? That would be my other question out of that conversation. Mm-hmm. We'll keep following that one. Another thing that we've been talking about for years, and Vanessa, you've kind of been in the loop on this recently, the clock tower in Grand Traverse County. We've got some bells that have been not really bells for the last several years. They've been
since
quiet.
2008. Last night they talked about, they want to have some funding to make those chime again. And it seems like, from what I understand, it seems like the community is on board with this. They want it. I was wondering, because I know downstate where I'm from, we had a situation like this where a lot of people didn't want the bells because it's disruptive and things like that. But it seemed like here everybody's pretty on board with it.
You know, the city or the county facilities director told me yesterday, you know, we're not going to please everybody, but there's a lot of people that want the bells to come back. They were shut off in 2008, like you said, out of safety concerns. So they're trying to raise this money locally, not as part of the county budget.
Right.
About $10,000 to buy an electronic system, right?
Yep, and it sounds like it's going to happen. From what I understood, there was really no bad blood there. It seemed like everybody there really was on board with this and wants the bells.
Do you have a clock tower up in Petoskey? Is there an hourly chime somewhere in town?
There is an hourly chime. The St. Francis Xavier Church has bells that chime. We also have a clock tower down by the waterfront. By the waterfront, but it doesn't chime. But you can count on hearing the bells from the church.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing that just some people have been missing locally. I mean, it used to ring every half hour actually, and
really? Okay.
And the other part of that, which I talked to the county about too, was that when they make it an electronic system, it doesn't have to ring 24 hours a day. I mean, they could theoretically appease the neighbors by 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. or something like that. So
yeah, and I think that there's really not much room for complaint there. If you have, a time where it's not in the middle of the night or early in the morning, it sounds like to me everybody's pretty happy with it.
We'll see where that goes. I know they've got some money to raise on that one as well.
Yeah.
One of the other stories you worked on this week, Vanessa, the big drug take-back day, and I know that goes on all over northern Michigan. You guys have it up north. We've got it down south. Tell us the latest. That's coming up. Is it this weekend already?
It's on Saturday from 10 to 2. It's actually a really cool thing. You can come. Actually, Grand Traverse County and the MSP Post in Cadillac have jugs, or the pod in the Grand Traverse County Law Enforcement Center's lobby, where you can take back your drugs all the time, all year round, which is great.
Which is new this year.
Yeah, they just added it recently, but it's a cool program. You can take all of your stuff back. This weekend is just pills. They limit it to pills, but at Grand Traverse County, you can do prescription liquids as well. But it's nice you get it out of the reach of anybody who could possibly abuse it, children. Just get rid of it, and then they take it. The DEA takes it to the downstate somewhere to an incinerator.
And you've got those up north too.
Yes,
pretty popular.
The pods are excellent. Many of the law enforcement agencies have the pods, have the drop-off locations for medication. It was put together by, in a large part, with the Tip of the Mint Watershed Council, which did a fantastic job in working to get those drop-off boxes in those law enforcement agencies. And you're right, it keeps those drugs out of the hands of children, but also it keeps it out of the environment. Because if you throw them out, it gets into the water system and causes all sorts of problems.
Yeah, and they were saying at Grand Traverse County that they empty that pod every couple of days, so it's been really successful.
Yeah, I wasn't surprised so much that the drug take-back days are popular, but I was almost surprised when I heard that too, that every couple of days they're dumping that thing out.
Yeah, yep, it's a lot of people. And even, we were talking with the Michigan State Police yesterday, and they were saying there's also other risks there's been break-ins because of prescription drugs, shootings because of prescription drugs, so it really is just a good thing all around to be able to have a place to safely dispose of those.
I know, I cleaned out my own medicine cabinet and a couple of jugs of liquid medication that are 3 years old and just random bottles of stuff that's been half used over the years. I mean, if you think about it, there's a lot of stuff that you can...
Yeah, and you have them and you use them till you need them, and then I forget about them. I have all these little drawers of medicine that I keep in my bathroom, and I just went yesterday after work. I'm like, wow, I really should utilize that pod, because I have a lot in there that is back from something I got in college. So it's a cool thing, I think.
The Tip of the Watershed Council, too, seemed to kind of take the lead in a lot of ways in this, because you guys up north seem to be out in front of it before we were. I know when I did the first story, was it 6 months ago or whatever, when they put the pod in, it was, we now have a pod here. There's already one in Charlevoix, Petoskey, or wherever. I mean, they were early on in this.
Yes, they were. We've had them for, I want to say at least 2 years up there.
Do you know, do they empty it a lot?
Oh, yes. Yeah, quite a bit.
They all seem to be really successful. So.
Well, the other, it's a good thing indeed. Another big story up in Charlevoix, the school system, and this kind of is a broader story with school budget cuts. But I saw, was it the athletic director in Charlevoix that position was terminated? Am I thinking of the right district?
Yeah, you're thinking of the right district. Charlevoix is facing some severe budget cuts. They're eliminating the athletic director position. They're going to shut down one of the schools, consolidate to, I believe they're going to shut down the middle school and consolidate the middle school students over with the high school. At least that was the last plan I heard. But it's in dire straits, and that's not the only school district. I mean, there's Petoskey is going to be facing some big cuts as well. I think all of them are going to be facing some big cuts.
You know, we've talked about this all over the state. This is not an isolated incident. Any school instances that you've covered over the weeks or months that just kind of jump out at you? Everybody seems to be hurting in one way or another.
Yes, everyone. I know the one that really stands out is Buckley's been having renegotiations of their contracts. I know they just had their superintendents last night. Their athletic directors was a few weeks ago. He did, in fact, get renewed, if I remember correctly. We've gone to Sutton's Bay to talk about programs that they need, that they don't have the funding for, depending on the budget and how that comes out. But, math programs and technology and things for iPads, and technology is so big this year that it seems that a lot of schools want funding for that type of thing. So I think, it's cuts in every single area, staffing, like programs, Everywhere.
And we've talked about that on this show before, that despite the fact that we're getting more money from the state this year, that's really going to, unfunded liabilities in a lot of ways. So in effect, it's a net loss.
Really,
the districts really aren't getting anything more. In fact, they're facing less money that they have to work with. Yeah,
and you also, if you factor in that a lot of districts have less students than they've had before, I mean, they're hurting. They're hurting bad. It's just going to get worse.
The one thing I wonder about, and we've had this in Grand Traverse County or Traverse City schools before, and you mentioned it in Charlevoix. When we shut down school buildings, at some point down the line, we're either going to have to sell those buildings, reopen those buildings, figure out what to do with that land. If we get a population boom in another 5 years or 10 years, we're going to need those buildings. So what happens to them, and will they be maintained? Have you heard any talk about that building that they're shutting down? What are they going to do with it? I mean, where do we go from here? Because there seems to be another story that's just kind of on the back burner that may bubble up again in a couple of years.
The discussion in Charlevoix, the last that I know, was that they were talking about possibly renting it out to some other entities like Baker College for classes for this college and that. So I think they'll probably end up, for that school, find some sort of renter or renters to split up school and get a little bit of
revenue out of
a
it.
little bit. Well, I wouldn't really say they're probably gonna make just enough to keep the upkeep.
Keep the lights, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's change gears yet again, and I want to talk about a story that was covered but was not covered by some local media, and maybe we can talk a little bit about what goes into that decision-making process. But situation in Traverse City this week, this past Sunday night, a homeless man got into a fight with a police officer out at the Civic Center, was asked to leave the bathroom and refused. And so police were called, and there was a scuffle. Individual was arrested, and we, of course, found out on Monday that this was the alleged suspect, Anthony Ciccone, who is a relation to Madonna, Madonna's brother. Vanessa, tell me about that. I mean, you and I heard about this at the police briefing, or I, talked about it with police after that. Tell me about that conversation at police, and then what your conversation was back with the assignment desk.
Well, he's a repeat offender with certain things, and he gets out there in the tabloids. I mean, he just recently came out saying Madonna and their parents wouldn't care if he died, and things like this. And it's an interesting story because you have Madonna and then her homeless brother. It's kind of,
Right.
It's unusual, and we personally chose not to cover it. I'm not sure really if it was one of those things where there was just other things to do that day. I know in the past we have covered things like this, and it is a weird situation because I wonder if it hadn't been her brother, would it have been such a big story? Because you were there, Captain Hefner had calls from E! News, Inside Edition, TMZ.
Right.
So and I know that all the Detroit stations covered it. So it's a weird situation for me. I'm not real sure,
Well, I think there was concern, at least from social media, people wanted to know, this happened, or why aren't we hearing about this on the news?
Right.
And then if you did cover it, or people saw it in the local newspaper, it was, oh, you're sensationalizing
Why did you cover it?
Why is this a news story?
Right.
For heaven's sakes. So there was this kind of internal debate. I mean, it was in the paper. I had a former colleague who posted online that he was surprised that the newspaper seemed to bury the information that it was Madonna's brother. Why wasn't that part of the story? And as far as I was concerned, I felt if it was any other individual who got into a fight with a police officer, it would have made news. But we're trying to walk this fine line between sensationalizing it because of who he is.
I think that Record Eagle, I believe it was Record Eagle that had it, and I thought they did a really good job of it. They treated it like it should have been treated. They focused on the part that there was a man that got into a scuffle with police. To me, that was the news. And then that would be something that we would cover in any kind of situation. In any case, we would cover. In Charlevoix and Petoskey, we frequently have people who are well-known, famous people who come and they live in the area. The Ramseys, for example. And my take on any stories involving famous people is if you treat them just like you would treat anybody else. When it comes to news stories too, we'll cover them if they've done something of news value.
Right.
But other than that, like there was, for example, years back, there was a pool auction for the Charlevoix pool, and I had sent a reporter over to take some photographs of it, and this was when Patsy Ramsey was alive, and John and Patsy were in the audience, and the photographer was just taking pictures, and this was no big deal. He was just normal pictures, and after the photographer came back, I started receiving some phone calls from some friends of Ramsey's. They were concerned about these photographs. That, are you going to use these photographs to send them to the Inquirer and such? I said, no. I don't care who you are. If you were out at an event like that, we may take a picture. We may use it, we may not. I'm just going to look at it as far as the value of the picture.
You didn't go
the
there
value
to
of
take
the
pictures of Patsy Ramsey, right?
And I did receive a couple of phone calls from like, I think it was probably Inquirer or something like that. Because normally what they would do is they would call, the Inquirer was known for, they would call me up and say that they were just a concerned citizen wanting to know about such and such of the Ramseys. I could hear the newsroom in the background, right? Hang up on them. But no, my theory was that you treat them just normal, like normal people. You treat the news story as a normal news story. So that's why I thought the Record Eagle did a fine job with it. Is they treated it like a normal news story. The news story here is we had a person get into a fight with the police. Just so happens this person is the brother of Madonna, and that you got to add that to the story. But they put it towards the end. Mm-hmm. That's how you treat it.
Yeah, I think with that type of thing too, that's how local media, like our outlets, should treat it too. I think that focusing on the fact of who it is E-Entertainment's job, TMZ's job,
right.
That type of thing. So,
and it seemed to be social media's job too.
Yes.
With the response from people of Madonna's brother was arrested.
Right.
Because as far as I was concerned, that wasn't the story.
No.
But that's how either people demand it or that's how people criticize it. And I think we're that fine line right in the middle in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think that could be why some other things took precedence over that for us. Because we don't want to make it, Madonna's brother. Because it was everywhere. It was all over the place.
Right.
It seemed like every time I went on Twitter, it was like blaring headlines, and it's just,
right.
Okay, it's not, it's a fine, there is a fine line, I think.
Well, let's finish out the show this week with maybe a conversation about the other fine lines that journalism tries to walk with some of the national news stories. And we've obviously come off of Boston. Since last week's show, we had the arrests of the suspects, one of the suspects, the death of the other bombing suspect. We also had the explosion in West Texas earlier this week. The Associated Press Twitter account was hacked, and AP tweeted that there was multiple explosions at the White House and that the president was injured. Of course, not true. So, Jeremy, just give me your feedback. I know that you and I had talked a little bit about something you posted on Facebook, just in terms of your general concern for how the media needs to, in your words, examine their actions and behaviors. The desire to be first trumps the desire to make sure the information is correct. Obviously, a concern for you and I think a lot of us in journalism. It's times like this we get a bad rap.
Yeah, and I was not happy at all with how the national media behaved during the Boston bombings, and the following Boston bombs. Excuse me. CNN's reporting was amateurish and dreadful. They should be ashamed of how many errors they made. The New York Post.
They had the wrong photos of the wrong.
I can't even express
suspects.
how disgusted I was with their behavior. It seemed to me that this whole 24-hour news cycle that everyone seems to be on now because of the internet. The idea of trying to be first is trumping our basic, what should be our foremost job is to be accurate.
Yeah.
And I've been at recently at media conferences where they're talking about social media and Twitter, saying things like, just get it up on get it up online and try and make sure it's accurate. Try. No. Make it accurate.
Right.
If you're telling your reporters, your young reporters to do that, you're wrong. You shouldn't be in this business.
Well, we're not talking about a situation where the Mackinac Casino, for example, it costs, is it $25 million or is it $26.2 million?
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, we're talking about putting the wrong suspects' photos on the front page of the New York Post.
Exactly. Or even the AP, the Associated Press, sending out a news story to all of its members that says that the suspects have been captured and are in police custody when they weren't. And they were using anonymous sources they hadn't had verified. We put that story up.
Right.
online. And the reason we put it up online is because I pay the Associated Press thousands of dollars. I'm talking thousands of dollars here
For the service.
for the service that I expect that they have vetted the stories and they're accurate stories and I can trust them.
Right.
So I trust them, so I can put it up online. And for them to make an error like that, because it makes us look bad, because the Associated Press, not many people actually look to see the byline, look at the Associated Press. All they see is, here's the story that the Petoskey News-Review
paper has
put
done.
up online, so the buck stops with me.
Right. We're not in the job of covering national news,
Right.
but we're in the job of sharing the news with our
Local.
readers, our viewers, our listeners.
Right.
So it's got to be frustrating for all of us to post something and say, oh, that's wrong.
Never mind. You know,
Right.
it is. I know that for us, it's huge that we absolutely verify. We cannot report on anything until we have it confirmed by somebody of authority. Which it is. That's a great point, is that people too often want to be the first person to break the story and they don't check it. And it's embarrassing. It really is. I mean, even like you said, I was tweeting throughout the day things about the Boston bombings from national outlets, and
Right.
luckily I didn't tweet anything that was inaccurate. I think that was just luck because I had been busy and kind of missed that.
Right.
You know, and
I
so
think I
but
was the same way, but it was
if
just
you,
hit
you
or
know,
miss.
yeah, it is. It's annoying because if I had tweeted that, then I have to, oh, never mind, just kidding. They were incorrect. You know, and it's really frustrating, and it should remain that you always prove what you're reporting.
One of the other conflicts with that, we've only got a minute left or so, but and we talked about this last week too, is if a police officer says, "Yeah, we got him," then a reporter is going to say, "They got him." So there may be instances, and not to defend the media, but I know it's happened to me over the years. There may be instances where the information we get is erroneous.
Yes, but I need.
You gotta check it out somewhere else.
I need solid verification
Right.
here.
Right.
This source may not have steered me wrong in the past, but I still want to double check it because that's journalism 101.
Yeah. I want to refer people to a website called chartgirl.com. There's a little chart on there called Give It a Rest, ARREST, and it's just a lighthearted jab at the media's coverage of this, whether an arrest was made, an arrest was imminent, whether there was no arrest, which networks reported what, and it kind of goes around in a circle, and we'll try to direct you to chartgirl.com to check that out. But it goes to the Boston Globe, to CNN, to the Associated Press, and who said what at what point, and how it kind of all got tangled up. Man, it just drives us nuts, doesn't it?
It does.
I want to thank everybody for tuning in this week. We're already out of time. Good conversation with Vanessa Fayz from 9 and 10. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having
And Jeremy McBain from the Petoskey News-Review. Thank you as well. Thanks for tuning into the briefing room. I'm Bill Froehlich, and hope to see you again next week.